the main points is that monarchy, just like Bitcoin, is about low time preference, about long-term thinking.
Today I have a very special guest here, Prinz Philip from Serbia. Can you tell us a little bit more about you?
Firstly, thank you for having me here. A bit about myself. I'm Prince Philip of Serbia. I am a hereditary prince, actually, of Serbia. Last year, my older brother abdicated in my favor. Serbia doesn't have a functioning monarchy at the moment, but it still doesn't stop us from behaving like a monarchy. But yeah, so my life is that I was born in America. I have a twin brother, an older brother, and my parents separated. We moved to Spain with my mother. She's a Brazilian princess, and then we moved to London with my father. We were schooled in the United Kingdom, and later on in life, I spent maybe 15 years working in traditional finance. In 2017, I discovered Bitcoin. My best friend introduced me to it, but of course I got sidetracked a little bit by shitcoins. And then in 2020, when the whole COVID thing hit, I saw something was seriously wrong, and that made me study more on Bitcoin, and I became a maximalist.
So you would describe yourself as a Bitcoin maximalist? Of
course, yeah. So by
toxic too, or only maximalist?
I can be toxic, yeah, loving. Then by 2021, I really wanted to get out of traditional finance and work in a Bitcoin company. Then that dream came true in 2022. Last year, March last year, I was on a evening show in Serbia, the biggest evening show in Serbia, with my wife, and I got to know the host a few days before. He knew that I was into Bitcoin, and then during the filming of the show, he interrupted me and asked if it's a good time to talk about crypto, and I said, well, it's not about crypto, it's all about Bitcoin, and I went on about 2 or 3 minutes about that. Then that got picked up by the community, and next thing I know, I'm being invited onto podcasts. I'm getting followed by people that I looked up to. And next thing, I'm invited to Miami, and in Miami, I got speaking to Samson Mao, and Samson Mao was opening up, was just about to announce his new company, Jan 3, and wanted me to be on board. So I accepted. And then I joined officially later in September last year. It was announced in Riga at a Bitcoin Honey Badger, and I've been traveling a lot. Jan 3 is a Bitcoin technology company, infrastructure company, but with the mission of hyper-Bitcoinization and nation-state adoption.
So you're big into Bitcoin and this space, and also working in this space?
Full time. Yes, in Serbia I have other duties. I mean, I say duties, they're not official duties because there's not a functioning monarchy there, but people recognize us as the royal family.
Do you have some tasks as a royal family still?
It's as I said, it's not. It's tasks because people like to invite us to a lot of places.
And you have to go there?
You don't have to, but we like to. We like to go and meet people and understand what the issues are, problems are, or just to go there, just to visit the place and just. Because people in the monarchy, the Karađorđević family dynasty is very important to Serbia. It was my great-great-great-great-grandfather in 1804 who started the first uprising against the Ottoman Empire and liberated Serbia from Ottoman rule. So this is the birth of modern Serbia. So that was thanks to the Karađorđević, Karađorđe, and the Karađorđević dynasty had very good kings afterwards, very good monarchs after that. The most liked, I would say, is King Peter I, and he really was liked by a lot of people. And I think today he would have been a Bitcoiner because he really was about individual sovereignty and a great freedom fighter. So Serbia's history is more monarchy than republic or communism. So maybe republicanism and communism is just a blip in its history. So maybe it could return one day. it's not something I'm actively working towards, but I am actively working toward trying to help Serbia reinstate its wealth. I want people to move back to Serbia has an issue with brain drain. A lot of Serbs who get educated, either within Serbia or abroad, end up moving out of Serbia. And this has been happening for many years. I want to reverse that. And that's why my wife and I are going to open up our foundation that's going to focus on business initiatives just to create jobs so people can, jobs that stay, that multiply, and one tool that we're going to use is Bitcoin.
Yeah, I thought so too when I heard this, because in El Salvador, when they moved to the Bitcoinization of the country, they attract more people with...
They attract a lot of foreigners.
and the right people, who are really into tech or innovative guys. So this is maybe also a possibility.
It would be
Serbia.
a great. Right now, I don't see that happening in Serbia. It's the current government, the state there right now is. Our president's been there since 2012, and let's just say that it's not a very crypto-friendly environment. I say crypto because they introduced the new law in 2021, which recognizes, it doesn't ban it, but it puts a lot of taxes on crypto, and it makes it difficult for companies to get licenses and for existing companies to regain their licenses. So it's not a very friendly environment for crypto users. But obviously, I'm pushing for Bitcoin there. So my focus there is nothing top-down. I'm doing what Bitcoin should be doing, is bottom-up initiatives. So, for example, we're opening up. I say there was some good local Bitcoiners that I know. One of them, for example, is Pavlinex, and thanks to him, we opened up a Bitcoin hub in Belgrade. And this place is going to be. It's right down in downtown Belgrade. It's a good space. It's going to be a space that's going to, in a way similar to this, not a hotel, but a space, but you can invite people for presentations, for meetings, and a workspace as well.
And was it bottom up? Was it from himself?
Yeah, from himself, and also a couple of foreigners as well.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great, it's how it's what Bitcoiners do. They're
Yes.
very hands-on.
Grassroots.
And they're grassroots, and they're
Exactly.
hard-working guys.
Yes. Like proof of work.
Yes,
like the concept.
Exactly.
The concept of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, the other guy that started it, he's actually not Serbian. He's John's. Mm-hmm. He's a nomad, a digital nomad who lives around the world. He doesn't have a home, but he's living a few months of the year out of the hub, and thanks to him mainly that actually the hub is open, and his company is paying mainly for the rent. I'm going to be chipping in as well, and we have maybe 4 or 5 Bitcoiners that are going there to actually work in the space right now, and there's been presentations already happening, and this is only 2-3 months old now, the project. I
wanted to get back to the topic where you told me a bit about monarchies, because in the Bitcoin space there's an author. His name is Saifedean Ammous.
Yes.
And he would prefer monarchies before he would choose
democracy.
Democracy or socialism.
Yeah, and of course.
And what would you prefer?
Well, firstly, when last year when I went public about being a Bitcoiner, he reached out to me.
Oh, really?
And I read his book. I ordered his fiat standard as well. I actually have my name written in the fiat standard in the mentions. And he didn't realize this, but then when I went public about Bitcoin, he reached out to me. He said it was an honor that I'm a Bitcoiner, but I said no, it's an honor that you're reaching out to me. And we went I went on his podcast. So this was me from listening to a few episodes in his podcast, like any Bitcoiner does, then appearing on his podcast and being a guest was an absolute honor. And we talked about the case for monarchy over the democracy.
And what was the...
it's... So it's based on... monarchy is very similar to... It has a lot of synergies to... I say a lot. It has 2 main synergies to Bitcoin. And number one... I wouldn't say in any particular order, but I'd say one of the main points is that monarchy, just like Bitcoin, is about low time preference, about long-term thinking. Monarchies, a monarch, a royal family, if it wants to survive as a royal family for generations, it has to look towards generations to come. So it should not take and plunder like democracies do in the short term, because if it wants to last, if that happens, the monarchy won't last. The other synergy is individual property rights. And a monarch has everything he needs. He has all the property he needs. He has his houses, his family's taken care of, but also he has to make sure his people are taken care of and that they have their properties protected. And this is very important, because if they lose that right to property, they're going to just go and turn against the monarchy. So if there's that, I would say, this agreement between monarchs and people, then that's going to create a very stable, fair society, which will last. And with Bitcoin's main thesis understanding of Bitcoin is the fact is it's immutable. I mean, not immutable. It's
true ownership,
true property rights. You know, you can't argue against that.
Yes.
And this is something that would have been great if we had Bitcoin during the Second World War, when my family were exiled out of Serbia. You know, they said that we in the propaganda by the socialists, they said that we escaped. My grandfather, the last king of Yugoslavia, was left Serbia in a train full of gold. Didn't happen, of course, but it would be more believable if he left with his head full of Bitcoin.
Now that we have Bitcoin, isn't it possible that everybody is his own monarch?
Well, I think that's what Bitcoin will, if we actually lived in Bitcoin standard, if most parts of the world turn into Bitcoin standard, you will have dynasties being formed.
Yeah.
You'll have people creating wealth, generational wealth. And this is how the world should work.
Kind of decentralized monarchy.
Decentralized, yes. So really, I believe that you'll end up having, I mean, I don't know if this is, if it's fantasy or not, but I would see that the world will turn into having many small have Liechtensteins all over the world. Decentralized, smaller nations around the world with something a similar model to Liechtenstein. So it's more of a self-deterministic, direct democracy in an absolute monarchy. And this works very well in Liechtenstein, and it works well in smaller populations, but I think even in bigger populations, Liechtenstein's 50,000 people. I think it would work better. It could even work in populations of 1 million or 2 million or more as well, where they actually have the ability to make a difference in their society, and they don't have to create a collective to try and make a point, which is happening in democracies and republics all over the world. You see what's happening in France. In France, Macron enacted that act. I forget the name of the act, but they call it the Suicide Act, which now he becomes almost a dictator. And so only because he wants to raise the retirement age by 2 years, that's going to piss off a lot of French people. I don't blame them. So a lot of French people go to the street. They go to the street, but does it make a difference? Do millions of people in the street actually make a difference? Does it actually change anything in the government? Probably not.
Yeah,
because there's no such thing as direct democracy there. And if they had more of a direct democracy, or a system of maybe anarcho-capitalism, that wouldn't happen. That would not happen at all.
Do you think direct democracy is a solution? Because sometimes when I think about it, it's more like a dictatorship of all the people instead of one. So it's still dictatorship.
I think it's a transition. Direct democracy is a transition. So I'm looking towards if governments, if countries are not going to adopt an absolute monarchy with an anarcho-capitalist society based all on a Bitcoin standard, which I believe is the perfect setup, I believe direct democracy is halfway there. And I look towards Liechtenstein and Sweden. I think the only democracy that technically does work is Switzerland.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, because they're decentralizing the canton system and they have self-determination there, and they're always going to vote for lower taxes, and it works to some extent. It's not perfect, but it works.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you would prefer for the first in the first stage?
It's not what I would prefer. I think it's more realistic, and I think
a realistic way
realistic way of actually reaching an absolute monarchy as well is not. It's not going to be going from so-called democracy or republic to absolute monarchy. You're going to have constitutional monarchy first. But when you move to that, and then you can then toy with the idea of, well, putting things on the Bitcoin standard, and then taking democracy away and just having freedom, and people working on a Bitcoin standard. You don't need democracy. You don't need.
Yeah, everybody is his own monarch, and you don't need it anymore.
The monarch is needed. So this is where I argue the case that the monarch is needed as a protector of traditions, of customs, of family values. I think maybe in an anarcho-capitalist, in a pure libertarian world, people might lose their traditions and might not lose, but people want to protect those traditions, want to protect their religion. And I think you go and ask people around the world if they want to lose their identity as a nation, as a religion, they won't want that. So there has to be some protector there, and that's why I think a monarchy works in that sense.
I think there is a natural demand for it.
There's a natural demand for someone up there.
Yeah.
I'm making this argument. It sounds kind of strange that I'm making this argument that I should be up there, but no, I'm not. I just believe it is. Logically, it makes sense.
I think the possibility has to be that everybody can be his own king, but if some people want the one and only king,
yes,
they can get their king.
But that's what I said
want.
Is under a Bitcoin standard, you will get other dynasties forming, and then you will have the possibility of moving away from this other monarchies. So Serbia, for example, if it became an absolute monarchy today on a Bitcoin standard, with an anarcho-capitalist society, it would work, but then at the same time you will have pockets of, you'll have other pockets of wealth created, and they might have some new dynasty being formed there in 100 or 200 years. I mean, but it will be done peacefully because it's under a Bitcoin standard, so the incentives are all in the right direction.
What do you think about private cities?
I think they're a good idea for the time being. I think there's a big case for private cities. I believe that private cities, like you could see how someone like Singapore became quite prosperous it essentially was a private city in that sense in Malaysia, and it attracted a lot of foreign talent around the world and built it around very, very low taxes and a strong financial services system. I don't agree with the financial services system there anymore, but at some point it worked. So that model there is essentially what a private city is. It's it's making society easier for people, and it will attract people, like-minded people, to work in a place where they have courts that are non-arbitrary, where they pay less tax, and they are actually pay for things that they're going to get, and not pay for things that gets distributed. Essentially, it actually works. I think private cities don't like the name city attached to it. I would prefer maybe location or something. But I believe that private cities have a good role to play, and I think that's also it's a way of moving towards a freer society, because private cities will then give the hint to the country or to the region that they're in that, hey, it's working here. Because I think private cities will work in the short term, but then in the long term, I think private cities might become obsolete when people realize, okay, I think we should be just doing what private cities are doing. So yes, I'm very pro private cities. Okay,
interesting. To go back to the Bitcoin topic, What would you tell a guy who never heard about Bitcoin?
Happens all the time.
Really? Still?
Well, not heard about Bitcoin, but
we are so early.
yeah. Well, no, yeah. I do come across some people in Serbia in the countryside that might not have heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as you say digital to them, they get scared, and for a reason. But then you tell them it's hard money, and you tell them it's to understand the history of money, and that Bitcoin is backed by it's essentially energy.
Yeah.
And it's an energy-backed monetary system that you can't inflate, that everyone plays by the same rules and all this, and they start to listen. Yeah, it's a difficult question. Now, what do you first say? Depends on the person, really.
Mm-hmm. You have to
gauge,
get them where they are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One thing I would say is that you learn about the history of money, and then you will get to Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also it's only possible to understand Bitcoin when you understand money.
Yes.
And the history of money.
And you see, I thought I was working in traditional finance for almost a decade and a half, and being in finance, you think, oh yeah, I understand how the world works. I know how things work. Meanwhile, I had no idea what money was, and I think big part of the financial world don't understand what money is. Maybe if you get to a higher level, you understand that actually know what money, what the fiat system is, and because you benefit by it. But I really didn't get it until 2020. It took us, so that's quite late.
yeah, it's funny to see now how you watched, how you saw the world back then.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, so the new view of the world with Bitcoin.
You would always think, I always knew that money corrupts. That money is the main driver of corruption, but you didn't realize that actual money itself is corrupt.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, money. I mean, it's almost. I would say it's wrong to call fiat money. It's a perversion of money.
Yes. Yes.
Bitcoin is money.
Definitely.
Yes.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
What was your greatest experience in the Bitcoin space in the last 3 years?
Discovering it and the constant rediscovering of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Things like understanding the difficulty adjustment, learning about Bitcoin mining, how that is an energy revolution on its own as well. Yeah, there's a lot, and also getting to know the Bitcoin community as well firsthand. I mean, I didn't really meet my first Bitcoin maxi until I went to Miami, and the first two maxis I met was Daniel Prinz, in person that is, Daniel Prinz and Andre. Daniel Prinz, he has his own, the Once Bitten podcast. That was the first podcast I ever appeared on.
Okay.
And Andre, he's the one who, he's a maxi that's working on, that worked on orange pilling the Madeiran president.
Ah, okay.
And so then the third maxi I met was Michael Saylor.
Oh.
We had breakfast at his, so us three were staying in our Airbnb, and the next morning, I arrived there on the Wednesday or whatever it is. On the next morning, on the Thursday morning, we had breakfast at Saylor's with Andre, Daniel Prinz, and the president of Madeira, his two guys that was with him, and Saylor, Michael Saylor. And it was brilliant. That was just incredible to see Michael Saylor doing the orange pill masterclass, laser-eyed, to the president of Madeira, and it was fantastic. And I was there sitting next to Saylor while this is happening. I was thinking, wow.
Was it for you also a moment of orange pilling a little bit more?
A little bit more, exactly. He told some great 45-minute rant. I wouldn't call it a rant, just 45-minute talk. Gave some incredible examples, talked about incredible things, and it was fantastic. It was just beautiful. And there I was, like 2 months before this, I was like, I have my NIM account on Bitcoin, and I'm following all these people. Here I am with these people, with Michael Saylor. It was surreal, but it was beautiful.
Crazy.
And then since then, I've been to I've been to 9, I think now. This is my 9th Bitcoin conference. I've been to a few Bitcoin meetups. I've traveled to other countries to talk about Bitcoin, and just meeting a lot of the community, a lot of Bitcoiners around the world. And I meet intelligent, smart, funny, hardworking people, and it gives me a lot of hope.
Did you have a inner journey while you told me about the difficulty adjustment and all the other really big stuff in the technique, but
I think Bitcoin helped me understand more what it is about monarchy, and I had in a journey about low time preference. Getting married and having my son in 2017, I got married and I had my son Stefan in 2018, and realizing I had to protect. Firstly, my life changed. Your life changes a lot. It's a life-changing event getting married and having a son, I realized, oh my God, I got to protect his future, and that made me more involved in the royal family for Serbia for the Karađorđević dynasty. But I was still acting very fiat. Not very, but I was still attached to the fiat. And then I owned Bitcoin. I knew about it. I knew it was going to sort of be the future, but didn't understand how big it would be. And then in 2020, that's when I had it's almost like a spiritual awakening inside, and realized it really taught me about low time preference. You really understand it then, and I realized, made a connection to that and monarchy as well, and how this is going to be something that I'm going to pass down to my son, and knowledge. Not only am I going to pass Bitcoins down to him, but I'm going to pass down this knowledge, this the way that we should be living life. This for me, that was a real awakening.
It's very interesting that you say it was also a spiritual path, because you're not the first who I met today who told me something about spiritual stuff, and maybe it's very near to the Bitcoin path, the spiritual path, or maybe it's the same. It leads to the same direction, it leads in the same direction.
It also made me more religious. That's the thing. I was at one point in my life, 15 years ago, I was a bit of an atheist, I guess. Reading the works of I forgot his name now. It's been a long weekend. The guy who wrote The Selfish Gene and what's that book? Big renowned atheist. But anyway. But
Do you
then
know him? The
atheist guy, he wrote The God Delusion. No. Anyway, he'll come back. The audience will know. I can't believe Richard Dawkins. But then it became as I got close, as I moved back to Serbia in 2020, when my work in traditional finance, asset management, everything went on online, and I was working remote, and that was a good opportunity for me and my wife to move to Serbia. My wife is Serbian. My son was born in Serbia, but we were living in London because of my job. So I was like, okay, let's get a pack our bags and moving to Serbia, and maybe I'll move back. Maybe I'll go back and forth from London and Serbia with my job. And as I was living in Serbia, before this, I was getting to know, forming my family and getting to understanding more about Serbian culture through my wife. I became more accustomed, more in tune to being a Serbian, to being an Orthodox Christian, and then Bitcoin just gave me even more of that. There's something weird about that. It's not that I believe in God or not. I think I do and I think I don't. I'm not decided. But the traditional aspect of church, the way that church is very low time preference. Monasteries are essentially citadels, and they practice a lot of low time preference behavior there. A lot of preparing of food, making wine, pickling their food, and their behavior, their attitude toward life and stuff. And this was beautiful for me, and that for me was that part of the spiritual awakening as well. Yeah.
I think also the biggest leverage is the time preference. If the people get another time preference, they get another consciousness, and that's the way how really something can change, and everything by his own has to change, and nobody has to change the world. It's changing yourself.
It's changing yourself.
And Bitcoin leads everyone to themselves.
And that's the way we make change. you have to put on your own life first before you help others.
Yeah.
You can't be a help to other people unless you are strong within yourself.
Yes.
And this is the problem with society today. This is the problem with leftism.
Yes, they say you're an egoist.
It's egoistic, yes.
It's egoistic, yes. And
you project your problems and you look at the societal problems and you basically, you understand, you get it, yeah.
Totally. But maybe you want to explain a little bit more.
Well, I think one of the most dangerous phrases in modern history is for the greater good.
Yeah, totally.
It's for the greater good. Everything's done for the greater good right now, and that means that as an individuals we're forgotten about. And what is the greater good? What is good?
Yeah. And also ownership is egoistic.
Yes.
That's these sentences of
that's the thing.
socialism.
That's ownership is bad. Ownership is bad, and so. But people want to own stuff. People want to have their houses. People want to have their individual property.
Yeah.
If you take that away, you're gonna risk going back into dark ages.
What can we expect from you in the next months or years? What are your plans?
With Jan 3, I would say that we're going to be speaking to a lot more more nations. We're going to release a couple of our products as well. So a lot of hard work for Jan 3, and in Serbia itself, my wife and I are going to open our foundation very soon. We almost completed the website, and basically continue kind of what we're doing, what I've been doing.
Yeah, living the dream.
Well, I wouldn't say it's hard work. It's tough work.
But it's for Bitcoin.
It's for Bitcoin, yeah.
Or for yourself more.
And just continue what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, great.
Speaking to people like yourself, you know.
Very cool.
I like this.
Very cool. I loved the interviews. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much.
Big pleasure and
the pleasure's mine too.
To meet you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.